Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
From the ethereal realm of devotion to the practicality of daily spiritual practice, across the vast landscape of Vedic wisdom and teachings, this is Vaishnava Voices. Hosted by the dynamic husband and wife duo, Sitapati Das and Dana Devi, they bring to you an intimate exploration of the vibrant world of Vaishnavism. Interweaving ancient scriptures with modern contexts, personal stories with universal lessons, they illuminate the path of love, devotion, and conscious living.
Hare Krishna, and welcome everyone to another episode of Vaishnava Voices. I'm your co-host, Sitapati Das, and beside me, as always, is the wonderful Dana Devi. Today, as with every episode, we're diving deep into the heart of Vaishnava teachings, exploring the wisdom, culture, and practices that guide us towards a life filled with devotion and service.
That's right, Sitapati. We are thrilled to have you on this journey with us. Whether you are a seasoned devotee, a spiritual seeker, or simply curious about Vaishnavism, here in Vaishnava Voices, we are all about fostering connection, understanding, and growth. And remember, we are not just exploring, we are also experiencing. So let's begin.
So sit back, prepare your hearts and minds, and tune into the sounds of the soul on Vaishnava Voices. From the ethereal realm of devotion to the
On. Hare Krishna, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, total world victory of Hare Krishna. This is Vaishnava Voices podcast. My name is Sitapati Das.
My name is Dana Devi.
And today, episode Sunday, 22nd of October for part of the Flat Earth, and Saturday, the 21st of October in another part that's in the past. The planet is obviously wrapped in space somehow, curved in space and time. It's where are they now? The Jews of first century Palestine. Very topical at the moment. Palestine, the Jews. No? Yeah.
It's a hot topic.
It's a hot topic in the 21st century. But we're going back 20 centuries into the past. If we can get Dhanesvara Prabhu on. He was on just before, and then he's dropped off. He said he's having some trouble with his internet connection. I'm just going to ping him now and see how he's going. He may move to a new location, which he sometimes does. Okay. keyboard's not working. Are you able to get back on? Right, while he's doing that, someone's stealing a car outside. Their alarm's going off.
Not necessarily.
Interesting, we got one comment already before the show even started, like yesterday or the day before. It says, my gut tells me Dhanesvara is off. Feels like I'm hearing offenses. Will not watch or hear. Okay, there you go.
Mm.
Someone who thinks with their stomach. Interesting. I mean, I think that Contea is off, personally, in particular aspects, you know.
Mhm.
Would not watch or hear. I mean, yeah, okay, whatever. Depends.
It's a personal choice, you know. If you want to, the situations here, there is a topic that we can read. It's like, oh, we get triggered about it,
Mhm.
and then something that doesn't align with your values
What?
or whatever.
Uh-huh.
You hear someone, and then that person doesn't, in that moment, doesn't align with your values for some reason.
Yeah.
And then somehow we take, I wouldn't say we, but some people take like, oh, this person is off completely, you know. But we have to, like, if we look back to ourselves, we have to be honest and say, okay, there are certain areas I'm not the best, certain areas I'm really good at, and certain areas I'm just like completely sucks.
Mm-hmm.
We all not perfect in any area in our lives, you know. And because of that, some people have this thinking, this person is off because of this, you know,
Mhm.
and they get triggered because something else happens to them. But if you give the benefit of doubt, or just step back and listen.
Open-minded.
Yeah, we have to be open-minded, you know, and this is the thing that we're learning here, to be open-minded. For myself, I'm learning to be open-minded.
Mhm.
You know, hearing people where they're coming from, certain areas we don't align, certain areas like, okay, makes sense. And some people are more like liberal, you know, whatever. Some people are more like, no, it's not whatever. It's like there is some boundaries about certain things, and it has to be kept as a certain with boundaries.
I'd like to say something about that, because I was thinking about this as I was running back to the computer. Left the computer at home. We got in here to start the show. I'm like, the computer is not in the office. You know, what's liberal and what's not liberal?
That's a big.
Well,
Yeah.
here's my point here is that, you know, like, some people want to make everything the same. And they're like, no, we should be liberal. This is just, okay, why not? If we're going to talk about the Jews, let's talk about the gays as well.
No, thank you.
We had that on the last show with Contea, right? And it's like, well, you know, maybe Krishna Kirti wants to have a kingdom where they burn the gays at the stake, right? Maybe Contea wants to have a kingdom where they get married and they can adopt children. Now, this idea that we should all do the same thing, that's not liberal, including if you think that gays should have children, but you want to force everyone to do that. That's not liberal. This is what I say is liberal. As the emperor, I'll let Krishna Kirti have his kingdom where they stone the gays or whatever, or expel them. And then Contea has his kingdom where they can get married and have children and everything. And these guys are not allowed to conquer each other's kingdom. That's what I call liberal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, like in our family, we run our family according to our values and principles, you know, what's the main goal for our family.
Mhm.
And somebody else to come and say, oh, no, you have to do this, you have to do it, like, close doors, see you later.
Mhm.
Don't come to my house and to tell me what I should be doing for my family, because my family is nobody else's family.
Mhm.
In that sense, yeah, we're gonna get like a lot of disagreements. So we have to think in that area as well with other people, you know. In certain areas, we're not going to be compatible, and it's fine, you know. Okay, this is your world, this is how you see your world, this is the world you want to live in, fine. But don't push into my throat your world into me. Just it won't work. Oh, party going on behind.
What is that?
I know, right? What was that?
I don't know.
That was something.
That's the strangest thing. Dhanesvara he popped in for a second, then dropped back out.
And the lights went off. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's strange.
We'll continue talking about it. So
Yeah.
So keeping the open minded is how do we benefit everybody else? How do we work in a way that we don't cut each other's throats with your beliefs and fanatical views? Or
That's the part that I don't agree with, that I heavily don't agree with Conte's presentation, is the crusade. And I'm sure, look, he will probably say that he's reacting to an extermination crusade coming at him from the other side, right? I mean, when you have this, anyway, this idea that we all have to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think that is exactly like the communist mentality, right?
Yeah, so
they all have to do the same thing. They all have to hear me out, and nobody else have a say except me.
Okay,
that
Dhanesvara,
is a kind of a poor mentality.
Let's see if we can get him on, if it's going to be stable. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Bol. Sorry for the
Okay,
delay.
we can hear you. Sounds like you
Nice
can hear
to
us
see
too. Great.
How's my sound? Okay.
Sounds good.
We can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me well? I got a lapel mic.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe could you try a different position for it? Let's try a couple of different positions because it's picking up a bit of the room.
picking up a bit of the room. Yeah, I was in my smaller room and set up there, and I had a good connection there all day, and I could get everything, but not this link for some reason. How's this? I've got my headset in the other room. I can go back there and get it.
Okay.
It sounds good when you actually hold it near your mouth.
Wow. Do I have to do that all the time? It's supposed to work like this. Let's see.
Yeah. Let me try a couple of things at this end, see if we can get a great sound audio. And if you're watching, let us know how it's sounding, so we can, because really it's up to how people are hearing it on the internet. Now,
Yeah.
Let me just try this.
I can't see what
Try
I'm
it
doing.
now.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
That's a bit better.
Hare Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Está bien ahí.
Like that? Okay. Okay, we're going to roll with it like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit clearer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, welcome. Welcome to Dhanesvara Prabhu. Someone's calling me on something else. Let me just find that. For those watching, Dhanesvara Prabhu is an author. He's the author of Spiritual Economics, Lessons in Spiritual Economics from Bhagavad Gita. Michael McNeish says it sounds fine, which is good. And also this book here, Divine or Demoniac, Spiritual Movements and the Enemies Within. I don't know why people don't understand that I do not answer calls on Facebook Messenger. Still trying to call me on there somewhere in here. 1 second. This is distracting me.
Oh man.
Okay, I'm going to block this person. Okay. Mute call notifications. Next. Great. Okay. Prabhu, welcome to the show. You brought up the topic. This is and it's so timely, right? Because this is the first half of your book, Divine or Demoniac, talking about the Jews of first century Palestine. And it's the part that everybody wants to skip over, right? So this is the opportunity to really create for people like, hey, if you'd read the first half of my book, you would already know this, right?
Thank you for saying that, so I don't have to. I tell everybody, you have to read from page 1 without skipping ahead. But devotees say, want to go right to ISKCON, and they miss the drift of the book. But that's because of the events in the Middle East, which is exactly why I suggested this topic for our discussion today.
So where would you like to start from, Peru? From the present day going back, or do you want to start in the 1st century Palestine, or do you want to start somewhere else? It's really up to you.
No, we'll start way back before 1st century Palestine. And in my room with all of the documents that I wanted to read from. And I'll tell you what, give me a minute to get this going.
Okay. We've lost Dhanesvara Peru again.
We'll be back.
Hopefully we're back in a second. Apparently, all the Intel chips are made and designed in a chip fabrication place in Israel. And
All right.
and Michael was telling me about one conspiracy theory researcher who, is having trouble with his computer, and he was saying that it's Mossad doing it to him. And so I said, just because your computer is not working doesn't mean that it's Mossad, It's called apophenia. Is the technical term.
Or what?
It means like seeing shapes in the clouds and stuff. Conspiracy and
Yeah. Oh,
perception.
God is looking at me.
Yeah.
I'm back. I don't know what happened, but okay. As I was saying, I'd like to start before the 1st century, and we can go back to the earliest part of that area of the world, which is recorded in the Assyrian text, the clay tablets that were found in Israel. There's a very prominent author of many years ago, Zechariah Sitchin, who studied the clay tablets of Syria and Iraq rather, and he wrote a series of books on that. And what he's explaining in his books is the history of the earth as we know it from Mahabharata and the Srimad Bhagavatam, that is the invasion of the earth. Now, Zechariah Sitchin just reports that in these tablets, there's a recording of the history that people came from somewhere else and they landed in that area of the world. Now, this is what, according to the Bhagavatam or Mahabharata, 6,000 years back, 4,000 BC, 3,000 BC, something like this. And of course, we know this to be the invasion of the earth of the Asuras. And the history that's recounted there is also recounted in it's also recounted in the Bible, of all places, amazingly. And the I'm trying to bring this up. Bear with me, please. I had this all set up in the other room, and then I couldn't get a connection there, so I had to come in here.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll just recount a class that Haridananda Das Goswami gave around New Year's Day of this year, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying that, that's the frame story of the Mahabharata, is Kalanemi and the Asuras, they get defeated, and then they, in their battle against the Devas and Lord Vishnu, and so they retreat to this kind of backwaters planet called the Earth to regroup and reinforce their attempts to take over the world or the universe. And that's when they run into the Krishna and Arjuna and the Pandavas here on Earth, and that's the frame story of the Mahabharata. So that fits with Zechariah Sitchin's kind of although he's condemned as pseudo-history and pseudoscience by the mainstream, of course, Mahabharata is also condemned in the same way, right? So he's in
Right.
good company in that sense.
Mm.
Okay, I'm going to first. I'll read from the Bible. These are Bible verses. This is from Revelations chapter 12. And it recounts the story of what they call there the fallen angels. Of course, this is written from their perspective, and so they consider themselves angels, not demons. So, beginning with text 7 there was also a war in heaven. Along with his agents, but he was not strong enough. There was no longer a place for them in heaven. The great dragon was thrown down. The ancient serpent, the one called the devil and Satan, the one who leads the whole inhabited earth astray, he was thrown down to earth, and his angels were thrown down with him.
Bad connection there. Apocalypsis, the name of the book of Revelation, written by John of Patmos, or is written on the Isle of Patmos by a guy called John, who's not the same guy who wrote the Gospel of John. It's the last book in the Bible, and it's a book of prophecy.
Yeah.
Apocalypsis means literally like the unveiling. It's often erroneously called Revelations, but it's not actually Revelations, it's Revelation, the book of Revelation.
Yeah.
The book of the unveiling. Paul Seals and I did a whole podcast on it a couple of years back, maybe 3 years ago.
Oh, we should play it back.
Yeah. Zechariah Sitchin, of course, he's famous for the Anunnaki thing. You know, the Sumerians, the Anunnaki,
Wow,
they're
he
like
was-
this race that landed. Michael McNeish says Mossad at it. Now you can blame everything on an intelligence agency, right? Anunnaki, yeah. He reckons that they're a race of extraterrestrials from a planet beyond Neptune called Nibiru. So there's this idea of this extra planet beyond the orbit of Pluto called Nibiru. And that the Anunnaki come from Nibiru and they come to the earth. And what they do is they enslave the humans and they make the humans mine the gold from the earth. And so lots of the geological features of the earth that you look at are actually remnants of massive mining of the earth for gold for this extraterrestrial Asuric race.
Entities, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's a book by Sadaputta Das called it was called Alien Identities when they published it in paperback, but he wanted to call it Parallels. That was the name he wanted. Obviously, they went with a more catchy kind of like, you know, something that's a bit more marketable, Alien Identities rather than Parallels. But the subtitle and the original title he wanted is Parallels Between Modern UFO Phenomenon and Vedic history, or the Vedas or whatever.
Yeah, all of this about this Zacharias Sitchin understanding, or what do you call this one?
Hypothesis, it's narrative, it's ideas, theory.
Ideas or theory. It kind of makes sense because, you know, if I look back to the in Inca culture, the Incas actually didn't come out of like from somewhere. There was like the history says that they come out from Lake Titicaca. They come out of the lake. And I think the Lake Titicaca is the deepest in the world.
Really?
Or the
Lake
largest
Titicaca, it's on the southern border with Chile, no? Just
yeah.
before it?
Yeah. Not that just before, but it's a bit of distance. Yeah, so who lives underwater are the Nagas mostly, isn't it? Nagas?
Nagas, yeah.
Yeah.
There's lots of accounts in the Mahabharata of interactions with Nagas, and they often involve bodies of water,
Yeah.
which is how they get in and out of the Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Of
So
the middle of the
the
earth.
Nagas. And the other thing with the Incas were very adept to be in communication with higher entities. And everything that happens with the Incas, the structure of the buildings of the Incas, also the
Oh, they're incredible.
also the architecture,
Mhm.
their religion, or religion, or we can call religion or spirituality, is more in contact with the higher entity, which is the sun god, the moon god, the Mother Earth. Where if we go back to the Vedic literature or scriptures, personifications of the moon, sun, all of that. So it makes more sense now.
Welcome back.
Okay, sorry about that. How far did we get?
You were reading from the book of Revelation.
Yeah, okay. And I didn't finish that then. Huh? Okay,
Kind of
anyway.
broke up in the beginning.
I don't know what's causing this problem. So I'm not going to change the page. I'm just going to stay here and I'll do it from memory. So, however, well, that can be done. Anyway, the point I'm making here is that the history of this part of the world, particularly, and we understand that when the demons came to the earth, they came to this part of the world based on the work of Zecharia Sitchin, and him reporting that from other places, men came in various ways, and he recounts in spaceships. Which mirrors, of course, the story that we read in the Mahabharata of the invasion of the earth, and how those who came were very demonic, and they created such trouble in the world that Mother Bhumi, the Mother Earth, she could no longer support the weight of these demons, and she went to cry to Lord Brahma for help. Then, which brought about the incarnation of Krishna, who killed most of these demons at Kurukshetra and in his childhood play, but not all of them. And since that time, they have reconstituted their numbers and they have been controlling the earth for quite some time. So, Josephus, the official Roman historian, he was asked, he poses the question, what is a Jew? And he answers that those who live in the area of Judea, they are the Jews. He also answers that, the Jews, this is a very amazing thing. He says the Jews are born from the Indian philosophers. Now, Srila Prabhupada had indicated to us, told us that Krishna consciousness was once all over the world. And so we take it that that was also the case in Palestine. And so that then leads up to what I want to present from my book, Divine or Demonic, the history of first century Palestine. Okay, how are we doing? Okay. All right. Anyway,
I'm just setting something up here so that we can actually look at the camera and see you, because at the moment we got our camera here and our screen down here. So when we're looking at you, it looks like we're not looking at you. We want to set it up so we can look at you and look like we're looking at you.
okay.
So just ignore what I'm looking at and just keep talking, Prabhu.
Yeah. Okay. So now when we get to first century Palestine, now at that time, the biblical history that we have is that that area was occupied by the Jews, and that they were living in and basically copacetically with the Roman occupiers. And Jesus is born into this environment, and from the time he's 12, then he amazes the rabbis with his wisdom. But then later, after his when he begins his ministry at age of 30, then for 3 years, and he preaches his gospel. Well, the history is not quite like that, and we can understand that from texts that are from the period directly. And that is, in 1945, in the Egyptian desert, near a place called Nag Hammadi, there was earthen jars that were found buried in the sand. And those earthen jars contained a number of scrolls, which became known as the Nag Hammadi text. Now, these scrolls were written, this is basically historical documents written by the people of first century Palestine. And they mention Jesus by name, and they mention various personalities, and they also mention their beliefs, their practices, and what they did, what they understood, what they knew. And so when these scrolls were discovered, it of course caused a lot of euphoria, right? But then quickly what happened was that those scrolls were given to a cabal of scholars to study, and they were not released to the public. Then a little bit later, in 1948, near the Dead Sea in Qumran, a shepherd boy exploring the caves, which are very numerous. He explored the caves. He found some more earthen jars with some more scrolls, which were similar to the Nag Hammadi scrolls. And again, these scrolls were taken to be studied in the University of Jerusalem, I believe, and they were held in abeyance, and they were not allowed to be studied by scholars in general. So this created a big stir about, well, why not? Why can't we see these scrolls? So there was a lot of skullduggery, a lot of drama about getting them released to the public. So it took one scholar, his name was Robert Eisenman. He was from the University of California at Long Beach. And he was able to, with the help of some sponsors, finally get the scrolls released. And now the scrolls, they give very detailed information about the people who lived in that area, what they believed, and so on. And what I'd like to do here is read to you a little bit. Are we still there? Okay. Just want to make sure I didn't go away. Read to you a little bit about what they had found in those scrolls, which is very interesting. Now, if you're an ordinary religious scholar and you read these things, it may not be very significant, but as a Vaishnava, when we read these, we understand more significance than an ordinary religious scholar might. And that's because of the content of the scrolls. So, what I'll read first is just four major characteristics of the religion that people followed that were explained in the scrolls. The first one was there's a direct, personal, and absolute knowledge of authentic truths of existence accessible to human beings The attainment of such knowledge is considered to be the supreme achievement of human life. In other words, self-realization. Right? The second point that they explained, a knowing by and of an uncreated self or self within the self, a knowledge that leads to freedom. Of course, this self within the self is explanation of the spirit soul, the spiritual energy that lives within the material body. Third point, their reverence, let's see, the third prominent element is their reverence for texts and scriptures that were unaccepted by the Orthodox fold of the day. Their experience was rich with poetry and so-called myth, both in allegory and story, and also in ritual enactments. They sought expression of subtle visionary insights inexpressible by dogmatic affirmation. They held a profusion of inspired texts and amplified the creation story considerably beyond the simple story of Adam and Eve. And then the fourth point, in many of their texts, God is both a unity of both masculine and feminine and worshipped as a divine mother and father. Okay, so that's interesting from a cultural, religious, historical point of view, but for the Vaishnavas, we understand that this directly reflects our understanding and our beliefs as well. The first one being a concept of self-realization and God realization being identical and the highest goal of life. The second characteristic is expresses an understanding of the Vaishnava concept of spirit and the duality of existence in the aspects of Dibinamsa and Swamsa, respectively, the living beings who are part and parcel of the Lord and the Lord himself, being qualitatively equal and quantitatively different, or Chinta Beta Beta Tattva, as we said it. The third point references the Vaishnava reverence of divine message of the Lord revealed in our Shastra, or scripture. The Vedas written in poetic couplets and meter, expounding many wonderful pastimes of the Lord, which were enacted in rituals and plays, dramas, and so on, especially at festival times or celebrating holy days. And then the fourth part is all Vaishnavas will immediately recognize this as the worship of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, although they did not do their worship exactly identical with either content or understanding. So this is significant. We hear this and we go, okay, these people in Palestine, it sounds like they were Vaishnavas. And but then what happened? Because what passes as Christianity today doesn't appear anything like Vaishnavism, either in belief or in doctrine or philosophy. Very, very different. But there's more. In fact, let me read you some more of the different beliefs that they had. And we go down this list, and it will be quite conclusive. Okay. Now, this is from a religious scholar. His name is Hans Joachim Schops. And the title of the book is Factional Disputes in the Early Church. In other words, the early church, Christianity, if you will, that's what they're saying. Christianity is born from the time of Jesus, but at the same time, there's these other factions which do not agree with that history at all. And so some of them, by way of, let's see, the word Essene is in the Bible. And so they have this image of the Essenes, which were taken to be an ascetic sect who was present there at the time. But here's Schop's recounting here the characteristics, the beliefs and characteristics of the Essenes. So one, celibacy was advocated and practiced by some to the point of being Naishtika Brahmachari. Two, the practice of early morning bathing rituals, which is considered compulsory, both before and after eating, before prayer, and after defecation. They took that very seriously. Three, evidence indicates that they may have practiced some method of Harinam because, as we know, the New Testament contains many references to glorifying the names of God. Four, the Essenes used water baptism as an unrepeatable rite for initiation, symbolizing spiritual rebirth, transformation of a first birth derived from material lust. Five, they practiced water purification as an atonement established by Jesus, abandoning the Jewish practice of requiring blood sacrifice of animals for the cleansing of sins. This is a very major difference. Six, they took great pains to preserve their scripture, even with a view of countering future heresies. They were very, very careful. Of course, in those times, there were not many books. Everything was more or less spoken by or learned by hearing. And there was some writing, but they were very, very careful to transmit what they had learned exactly as they had learned it. Seven, the Essenes held a concept of disciplic succession of acharyas, similar again to Vaishnavas. Eight, they practiced voluntary seclusion, avoiding worldly association. They wouldn't mix with worldly people, and detachment from people in general. Nine, they advocated simple living to the extent that some of them did not even maintain a fixed household. 10, they understood that all property is given by the Lord, and we are only entitled to our quota. And they kept all things in common, dividing everything amongst each other according to everyone's needs. They were complete vegetarians. They did not eat meat or fish, and neither did they drink wine, which was, of course, the only beverage of the day, aside from water. But to the extent that some of them did not even cultivate grapes. 12, they would eat only pure food of the community at a common meal, and they would not eat other foods, especially the foods that were offered to, at that time, there were many demigods that were worshipped. They would not eat food offered to the demigods. 13, they took severe vows to strictly observe their principles and carry them out. So even if they were tortured or whatever, they would not submit. They were very, very strict in following their practices. Another important part of their vows was to transmit the teachings exactly as they had received them without the smallest change, maintaining the purity of their understanding. 15, they rejected the ancient Israeli monarchy, preferring a theocracy guided by pure priests. What we understand, of course, is Varnashram Dharma. 16, The Essenes were absolutely convinced that the then current Pentateuch, their scripture, was falsified, and that everything that is said or described concerning God in their scripture was false. So Jehovah, Yahweh, who wanted blood sacrifices and so on, who nobody could look upon, they considered that this was their scriptures changed, and that God was a kind, loving person, and he was replaced somehow with this Jehovah character. 18. They are depicted as being almost fanatical followers of the reconstituted Judaic law as a practice or demonstration of their faith. In other words, they followed their scripture. No, again, they believed that scripture was falsified, and it was actually the duty of Jesus. It was his role to establish the correct principles of religion, to cross out what was false and to establish what was true. And then when they had that proper understanding, they would follow it very, very strictly. 19, regarding Jesus, they did not consider him God. They considered him a natural, conceived, and born man, but they honored him as a true prophet and one who comes into cyclic succession to establish the true law. So, if I were to read to you, or you were to read this list of items, and you ask, okay, who does that sound like? Well, any Vaishnava would say, it sounds like Hare Krishna devotees, right? And they were Vaishnavas exactly like us. And moreover, even Jesus is said to have worn tilak. So now, they were one set of, or one group of people who were in the Middle East at that time. As well, there were the Orthodox Jews who had, let's say, cooperated with the Roman occupiers and were, let's say, they became subservient to the Romans. Whereas Jesus, what I call the Jewish Vaishnavas, they were xenophobic. They refused to pay taxes, and they wanted they wanted them out of their territory. And they were actually such a large number that they fought many battles, to the point where the final battle in 60 AD was the 7 years Jerusalem War. So they were so large in number, it took the Roman army 7 years to finally extinguish them all. So who were the real Jews? This is the question. The ones who had co-opted with the Roman occupation, or the Jewish Vaishnavas? So what we come down to today is that the ones who had knuckled under to the Romans, they had compromised their teachings and understanding to accommodate the Romans. They became the official religion of the Roman Empire. Later, not the Jews. I'm sorry. The Jews, they were cooperating with the Romans, but what the Romans did, they saw this resistance from Jesus and his followers, and they were trying to control everybody at that time with the sword. But when they saw that how these people, they were so determined to maintain their practices and their beliefs and understanding of life, that they would die rather than submit, then the Romans started thinking, well, wait a minute, why don't we just control people by what they believe? And so in 300, actually, it was Emperor Constantine's, his mother-in-law, who suggested this idea to him. And then Constantine, he made a deal with Pope Sylvester at that time. He said, I'll make Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire on two conditions. One is that the Pope will be both a temporal and spiritual leader, and two, I get to name the next Pope. Sylvester agreed, and then we have the very degraded history of the Roman popes and the whole Roman Catholic religion. So, with all that as a introduction or background information, let's look at, okay, who's in Jerusalem now? Who are the Jews that are there? Okay, are they divine or demoniac? And as Srila Prabhupada said, well, we, Felina Prayachite, we judge by the result. Now, of course, the definition or explanation of the demoniac is given by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, an entire chapter devoted to the demoniac, a very extremely important chapter to understand because those are the people who are running the world today, the demoniac. And so, so much is mine today. He is my enemy and I have killed him. I'll acquire more riches in the future by my schemes. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. So this is very important chapter. Now, I explain the demonic nature. I had one chapter in my spiritual economics book devoted to explaining divine and demonic nature because when we talk about the economic activities of this world, there are many terrible and heinous things that are done using economics as a tool. And so I explain, well, you know, what kind of people are these who can do these kinds of things? And of course, we understand that they are demonic and they use economics as a weapon to control the world.
Can
And
I
we were
ask
saying-
some questions about
Yeah, sure.
the first part of your presentation before we dive into this part?
Yeah.
Okay, so the in the Bible, you know, you encounter as we find it today, the New Testament. You know, it tells a story of Jesus. He's in there, his followers are in there, and then there are two other groups among the Jews at the time who are the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They're the two main
Pharisees.
sects.
Right.
Yeah. So you have the Sadducees, which are smaller, the Pharisees, who are ascendant and seem to have control. They're the dominant kind of group.
Right.
And then you're saying that there's a third group there which go unmentioned in the Bible by name, who are the Essenes, and that
Well-
Jesus belongs to that group.
Yeah. Now, because there's an effort to obfuscate the actual history of this time, everything is made purposely confusing. Same thing as in economics. Okay. So there's many different groups. There's the Essenes, the Zachariah, Sicarii, the I can't remember all of them, many of them, but there's about 20 different groups, or groups with 20 different groups. And my main, the main scholar that I've followed for writing this material is Robert Eisenman. And he goes through a 20 pages to make it clear that all of these people are actually of the same group, but by different names. So they would be the Sadducees, actually. And the Pharisees are the Jews who have compromised with Rome, who have control of the temples. Is that clear?
So you're saying that the Essenes and the Sadducees are the same group. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Different names.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because the Sadducees, although I've heard of their name before, they never appear as an actor in the New Testament. It's always just Jesus and his followers, by extension, against the Pharisees. That's the story that's being told there. Okay, so you're saying that the Essenes and the Sadducees are the same group, and then there's basically the Pharisees who are collaborationists with the Roman occupation, and then sort of like a hardcore, the Essenes would call them, and then kind of like rings around that of people who are non-collaborationists but of different kind of flavors. Now, all these people who are all there, both the Sadducees, so the Sadducees and the Pharisees are generally understood to be two different sects of Judaism, or the Jews, right? So, but and then there's, it was always interesting to me that the Dead Sea Scrolls came out, and then suddenly there was this new other thing, and they said, oh, there's this other kind of like significant group that was kind of co-extant with Jesus, or maybe just a little bit after, and they were quite a large community and significant, and left a significant literary thing, but they go completely unmentioned, and they're a different thing. And that always did seem kind of a little bit weird to me, but it makes perfect sense that it's actually the same thing, and then they've just like, tried to make out that, oh, it's this other thing that's a footnote to history that nobody noticed before, which is why the Dead Sea Scrolls are kind of so potentially explosive and had to be kind of carefully shepherded into public consciousness.
Yeah, now you have to understand there's a great deal of politics surrounding the Dead Sea Scrolls. The way I got into this, back in the late 90s, there was a number of books that came out written about the historical Jesus. And I think probably the most popular one was the Da Vinci Code. But there's a number of books, different scholars here trying to find out, okay, who is the historical Jesus? And they couldn't figure out much. Well, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were finally released in early 90s, about 93, and then I remember at that time, because I was reading all of these books, that I noticed in the bookstore, let's say I had read Eisenman's book. Now, Eisenman's, the main source book for my material is James, Brother of Jesus. And because there's such a lack of information about the historical Jesus, but there's a great deal of information about James, his brother. Therefore, Eisenman concludes whatever James is, Jesus was as well, as his closest living relative and his senior in terms of the ministry. When Jesus left after his crucifixion, actually James became the person who was leading the church at that time. Anyway, so when Eisenman's books were coming out, and Hans Joachim Schoep's, they were actually honest historians who were telling it like it is. But the majority of the religious scholars, they were giving the sanitized version that was basically similar to what we read in the Bible. In other words, there's nothing to see here, folks. Move along, right? Because why? They've built their whole empire on this myth of Christianity, which is not supported by the first century documents directly from those people.
So if we were to take your question that you asked, as the beginning of your second half of this presentation, taking it to the 21st century, which was like, what about the Jews who are there in that geographical region now? Are they divine or demoniac? If we ask that question about the first century Jews, are they divine or demoniac? It would seem that the answer would be, well, they're a combination. They're not a homogeneous entity. It's not that like either culturally, geographically, or genetically you could make a statement about all of them, because they do seem to be a variegated, like if we look around anywhere in the world now, you'll find in every place co-located divine and demoniac people, or people under the influence of divine demoniac nature,
Yes. Yeah, it's that way all the time. And we can, I mean, of course, my book is written about the Hare Krishna movement, divine or demonic. The question is, right? And certainly, you know, and I'm raising the question, what's going on? Because we're not following our Acharya, or the leadership isn't, but that doesn't mean that everybody's demonic, or, right? So we have to have some element of discernment. We have to understand how to discriminate what is divine and demonic. Now, I advocate that today, you know, we're given so many dichotomies. We choose this way or that way, right? Republican, Democrat, left, right, liberal, conservative, blah, blah, a dichotomy. Choose one or the other because they try to pit groups against each other. Well, my favorite dichotomy is divine or demoniac, because that's really the essence of either side. Right? It's the Star Wars drama. It's you know, the Hobbit. You know, every one of these contests between the divine and demonic, it's the same story, because there's two types of people in this world. So same thing today. Now, are all the Jews demonic? No. You know, now are some of the Jews demonic? Well, some of the Jews are said to be from where is that? Khazarian Jews, which is in the Caucasus, or to the lower east side of Ukraine. Said to come from that area. Well, they weren't Jews, but they took on Jewish persona, Jewish names, and so on, so that when they were being now those people, I haven't read a lot about, but I understand that these are very demonic group of people, and they take on Jewish persona so that if they are called out, if they're you know, people try to bring them in line and try to, you know, make them follow laws or whatever, then they can all say, oh, persecution, Jewish persecution. So they use the demonic. They invade every religion. They infiltrate every religion. You can read about the Mormons. There's a lot of history there. I've only touched on that. And of course, the history of the Roman Church, the Roman Catholic Church, is there. We can read there's a lot of history of the nature of the popes throughout the ages, who were so demonic. Would one say that even if the devil himself were to enter into the St. Peter's, they could find nothing to add to the wickedness of the place. So there's a lot of history there. And, you know, I don't know, I haven't investigated Islam, but I'm sure it's probably the same thing. Because why?
Well, I'd like to challenge the basic. I'd like to see if I can articulate the basic premise here, and then challenge it to see the what it's based on. It seems to me that what you're doing here is you have this categorization of divine or demoniac, which comes from Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says there are two types of created living beings, the divine and the demoniac, and then he qualifies them based on he describes them based on their qualities. But it seems that in your presentation here, what you're doing is you're saying that somehow a group of people on some basis, like, I'm not sure what it is, genetic, cultural, that we can use that as a proxy for analyzing an individual based on their qualities.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go back and look at these invaders. Okay. The invaders, what were they? They were not human. Okay. But they did come to Earth, and they did cohabit with with human women and create progeny who were of a demonic nature. And so that demonic tendency can and does follow bloodlines. For example, if we take the royalty of the world, the so-called royalty, what makes them royal? Not because they say so, but they are very careful to interbreed, not to mix their dynasty with normal human beings, because they want to preserve their nature. Now, let's understand again the nature of this demonic class. And the example, extremely intelligent, right? Extremely proud, extremely willful. He will have his way, right? To the point where he stood on his tiptoes until all his flesh was eaten away and still didn't give up. And the qualities I enumerate, okay, we can look at these various qualities. Now, these people exist in the world today, okay? Modern psychology, they give them several names, either malignant narcissist or psychopath. The psychopath is a person that has no conscience. That is, they are completely disconnected from the super soul. And what is right is anything they want to do. What is wrong is anybody that opposes them. They think like this. They have no opinions. They have no emotions. But they learn how to do things by observing other people. And they're very intelligent, by and large. They have no remorse. They can do anything without compunction because they have no morality. So, what was it? Someone once said that the best traders on Wall Street are psychopaths because they don't care about who they're going to damage by their trades, who they're going to impoverish or whatever. Their only concern is making money.
So there's no controversy about this part. That's, Divine Demoniac, chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita. But really the crux of what I'm hearing you state here seems to be disproved by the history of Hiranyakashipu himself, which is that Hiranyakashipu's son is not a demon. His son is a devotee, Prahlad Maharaj. So it seems as though bloodline as a proxy for, divine or demoniac is disproved just as much as we would say simply by being the son of a Brahmana doesn't make you a Brahmana. Makes you a Dvija Bandhu, and you potentially could be, but it's up to you personally, guna and karma.
In that sense, the exception does not make the rule. Prahlad's definitely an exception, but that does not make a rule. Now, can the demons, can they change? Yes, they can. For example, in Rajavidya, King of Knowledge, I forget what page it's on, but Prabhupada says that the world is run by mating the Rakshasas. So a group of devotees from that book came out, they went to Prabhupada and they asked him, who are these Rakshasas you're talking about? Are they running the world today? And Prabhupada said, yes. And they suggested, okay, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, these people, these industrials, yes, Prabhupada said. So the devotees were shocked, and then they said, so what do we do? Prabhupada replied, preach to them. Okay. Now, can they change? Certainly they can. Everybody has free will. They can change. But, let's say, the general modus operandi that they follow is they want to control and own everything, right? And we hear this from the World Economic Forum, right? 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. Well, that raises the question, well, who is going to own everything then? Okay. If all of us are going to own nothing, well, somebody's going to own it. And they're doing things in this manner because they want to own everything and they want to control everyone. And we can see it coming. We can see it coming now with the whole World Economic Forum and everything that they're laying out in front of us.
Yeah, I was in New York doing Harinam with Roy Ramprabhu and his crew of merry men and women. And there are a lot of Orthodox Jews in New York.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed about them, okay, a couple of things. One is that they don't have any kind of like, oh, these are the Orthodox ones. Of course, you got Reformed who they dress like everyone else, but they wear their costume and they don't have a problem. There's no, they got no problem keeping themselves separate identity from people. And then we're of course there in Dodi and Kurta with our thing on, and we got no problem with that as well. But it was interesting to see that they have their external kind of symbols and they got no problem with it. The other thing I noticed was that they were extremely attracted to the Harinam. A lot of people would walk past and would ignore it, but these guys were like, wow, this looks cool. I could see that they're into it. They seem to be, they're attracted to spiritual practice, intense spiritual practice.
Right. Now, have you seen also that these Orthodox Jews are protesting what's going on in Palestine now? Okay.
And they were about to bring the government down.
Huh?
The people in Israel were about to bring their government down before this whole thing happened over there. They had 7 months of increasing protests against the judicial reform that's been happening. So the government internally was facing an uprising.
Yeah. Maybe you can repeat that. I didn't catch that because you froze.
Yeah, I was just saying that internally in Israel, the government was had been facing 7 months of steadily increasing massive civil protests. So the people there were on the verge of throwing their government out over the judicial reforms.
Sure, that's one thing. And then, there's two groups now, right? The Zionists, who, they advocate for Israel, the state of Israel, and then the other Orthodox Jews or other Jews, they're not necessarily Zionists, and they don't want to be identified as Zionists either. So again, you can look at this, and again, Felina Precite, you judge by the result. What are the actions of these different groups? What are they doing? Well, how is Palestine, or how is Jerusalem even formed? Now, I've gotten to know a bit of that history based on what's going on now. And it was a matter of violence and killing from day one. And it's continuing in the same way. So, Felina Precite, this is not respectable, proper behavior, right? This is demonic. Okay? Are all the Jews demonic? Of course not.
Sorry, what? So you characterize something as being demonic, but I'm not clear on what it was that you were characterizing.
Yeah, all the killing and bloodshed to establish the Zionist state.
All the killing.
Can you really say that? I mean, like, what was involved in establishing the United States of America? I mean, it was like wasting the indigenous people and then killing the British government to throw them off. I mean, really?
Yeah, well, the history of, the conquistadors of Western Europe, that's the history. It's a demonic history.
So, I mean, is in that sense, is the state of Israel, and we're just throwing ideas around here and testing them, but how is it materially different, the establishment of the United States of America?
It's not different. Neither of them is correct in that sense. What the Europeans did come to this continent and take over land. Well, the Indians, the Native Americans, they had no concept of ownership of land. You couldn't own the land any more than you could own the air. But that was the concept of Europeans, right? All in mind. Where does this concept of land ownership come from? It comes from the Romans. The Romans were the ones who first established this idea of ownership, and particularly of ownership as much as I can get my greedy little hands on. And the Romans had a very specific idea of ownership in that a Roman citizen could be an owner of anything, but a non-Roman citizen could not. Right? So the Roman Empire, again, was a demonic empire, characterized by all the Western empires, characterized by what? Expansion, control, usurpation, right? Exploitation. This is Roman civilization. I'm sorry, Western civilization. It's all demonic.
But it's coming to now the Kali Yuga, all of these famous few that are trying to control the world. In a way, they are destroying their own group of people and to lord over everybody else left. But most likely the ones that are going to be left are the people that are, not following that and then take over.
I was watching a video
Yeah.
yesterday
Uh-huh.
about talking about the overthrowing the system and the whole thing collapsing like you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a Kiwi guy. He's 17 and he's an Orthodox Jew, and he said there's no Jewish community in New Zealand, so he went over to Israel, and another YouTuber was there, and they went into this ultra Orthodox section of the city, and they went to this place where these people study, and they basically go there all day, every 6 days a week, and just study scripture, and they get paid to do it by the school.
And Brahmanas, right?
Yeah, and like I saw those guys in the LaGuardia airport as I was leaving. There were these Jewish families coming through, and I was like, these guys, I don't know whether there are like so many Orthodox Jews here in New York that this is what it looks like all the time, but I think they must have been going to some festival or gathering somewhere.
Well, there's a whole section of the city which is just Orthodox Jews. I'm not sure what borough it is, but yeah, there are very large number of Jews there.
These guys were all going, and they were going somewhere, and they were the man, the father, the husband was carrying some big kind of like a scrolls kind of thing. So each of the families looked the same in this respect, even though I saw them at different times going through. The father's carrying these scrolls. Then there's a woman, and they look kind of Amish, because their get up is not like first century Palestine, clothed robes or whatever. It's like 1900s European, like German city or something. And then so Amish kind of looking, there's the mother there, and then they got like a bunch of kids, like 4, 5, 6 kids, in a train, all of them going together to the thing. And I was looking at them and I was like, dude, this guy doesn't look like he works a job, man. I don't, these guys must get paid to be like, maybe these are rabbis or something like that. But these people are like, these people, I don't want to sound like I'm racially grouping them together or anything, and I am. They're into studying the scriptures, like you don't find people in New Zealand who are doing that.
No.
Of any kind of racial, ethnic, whatever, culturally. Yeah.
There's many fine people who are Jews, but like every group of people, not all of them. They say now the modern propaganda, white men are bad. Well, no, it's not all white men. It's the demonic white men. They're bad. There's also white men who are not
because they're very effective.
I'm sorry?
And they get a shout out because they're particularly effective. But I mean, I look at these guys, they're super dedicated and everything, but I'm like, hey, these guys are interested in the Harinam, but if they're not like, working for us on this planet, they're working for the other guys. Because there's only 2 teams on this planet and you're working for one or the other. So, we got to, Srila Prabhupada said about the Jews, he said, yes, I have the best Jews.
That's true. There are many Jews that come to leadership positions in our society. Because by and large, my experience, Jewish people are exceptional people. They're very intelligent, okay? Very much like Indians are also another group of extremely intelligent people. We see them running all the big corporations here in America now, right?
Yeah. Very business effective.
The business minded.
The Chat GPT, the artificial intelligence, it can score 155 in a verbal IQ test. So it's got like way higher than your standard human. But apparently, if you tick your ethnicity and you tick Jewish, then they score way higher in verbal IQ tests than other ethnicities. And who was mentioning this the other day? Oh, it's in Contea's book. He says, it's like when you do the demographic analysis of the United States, they have most of the money. In terms of like their median household income is higher than any other group. Here's something that I find very interesting too, is that in the critical race theory analysis of the United States, it's all about how the straight white men are oppressing the black people. I'm like, hey, if we're going to do the critical theory analysis, wouldn't it be racist if we were to leave out the Jews as an ethnic or
they're white men
out of critical theory?
Why aren't they included in the white men? They all look like white men to me.
It's funny how they create such a racist between white, black, and whatever other colors. And then when you look at them, it's like, okay, you are fair skinned, so you consider as white man. So why are you creating this dynamic of like the white man against the black man against it? Like, doesn't make sense. And
they're on the team. They're on the team to promote the agenda that the moneyed class wants to be promoted.
Can I advance a hypothesis here and see what you think of it? Just like you mentioned, white, straight white men, they get like mentioned as the demons, and as you say, it's the bad ones. And the point I made was like, but they kind of stand out because they're particularly effective. Could it be? Here's my hypothesis that that the Jews as a group get cast into the, they are the secret cabal doing the thing because it's cross-cutting across all races and groups, but the ones who are like, due to their effectiveness, the most kind of visibly effective at being demons are the Jews. The Jewish demons, I should say, not the Jews as a group, but they're going to be the ones that are going to stand out when you do the analysis simply because they're just better at whatever they do.
There's a lot of history for the Jews that is not good. And particularly they control the money system, the money supply, the whole money arrangement. Generally, we see that.
But when you say the Jews do that, I mean,
some Jews.
I mean, you could say the ones who control the money system are Jewish, but it doesn't mean that like the Jews control the money system, right? Because that's what people will come on YouTube and say, hey, someone needs to clue me in because like I'm having trouble paying my rent this week, and like, hey, we all know that we control the money system. So like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Same thing for me as a white guy. It's like, you guys are the oppressors. And I'm like, hey, can someone put me in charge? Because like,
Right.
I seem to have missed out on my share.
So, one has to be extremely careful not to characterize and not to, speak paint with a broad brush, so to speak. The Jews, like I said, in my experience, they're extremely intelligent people. They are at the heads of many corporations and the heads of the government of this country. And it's not by accident. What? Because they're smart. Okay. Not to take anything away from them. Okay. Now, what do you do with your intelligence? Okay. How do you use your intelligence? That's the question, really.
Mm.
Right? Are you going to use it for good or for evil, for control or for supporting people? So, again, my what I say is we have to evaluate things on the basis of divine or demoniac. What are the divine characteristics? What are demoniac? And then we see who's who on that basis, not on the basis of skin color, not on the basis of some label, left, right, Democrat, Republican, or anything, but on the basis of Felina Paricite, on the basis of their action.
So that would seem to support my hypothesis then, which is along the lines of who would you expect to see in charge of America? Well, Jewish people. And so, but they're either going to be working, they're going to be either working for Asuras or for Devas, but they're going to be, it's kind of like it's undeniable that they have a racial narrative about being the chosen people and God's chosen race and like the master race, like they have like an explicitly apartheid ethno state. There's just no two ways about that. And look, maybe it's based in some kind of like, it seems to be effectively based on their results, based in some kind of reality. Like they have tickets on themselves and it seems to be justified, right?
Well, in their mind, not in everybody's
Well,
mind.
not just in their mind, because objectively you said that they are like running the government, they run many of the corporations. So it seems like they can deliver.
Yeah. But then the question is, what is the condition of the current government? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Many people would argue that the government at the present time is quite demonic and has, is not, it's not following the ideal that it's established on. Right?
No, there's no controversy about that. But my point that I'm making here is that if I have a high-powered rifle and I have a sporting kind of pellet gun, I can use the high-powered rifle for good or for evil, but that doesn't change the fact that the high-powered rifle is just objectively more high-powered than the pellet gun. So what I'm saying is that Jewish people, have this narrative. No, the Jewish people as a whole have a narrative that we are God's chosen people and we're superior to everyone else. And it looks like they actually are objectively in several dimensions of performance. Just like, your Black American athletes are objectively genetically superior to the white people in specific activities. They don't dominate in swimming, but they dominate in running. It's just objective. And then what that gets used for is another concern. But that's my point about their racial superiority narrative.
As regards the chosen people, then we must go back and revisit who wrote the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the Bible.
Rewrote.
It's not from the Bible though, because the Jewish people don't accept the Bible. That's a Christian.
No, they accept the Old Testament. They accept the Old Testament, not the New Testament.
The Torah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one thing you were mentioning, Prabhu. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the question is, who said they are chosen? Okay, and very easily somebody could just write that and then take advantage of it, for a long time. Has that been going on? Many people would say so. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Remember we were talking. You described the demoniac qualities and how they want to lord over it. And there's two types of people that are quite good at this: the malignant narcissist and also the psychopaths. Now, knowing a bit of these two personalities, it's so fascinating how they think they are superior to everybody else. They won't hesitate. They will say, "I am superior." Now, if they think they are chosen by God, of course they will say that, there's no doubt about it. They will say, we are chosen by God, we are doing that. And fair enough, because the way they use the intelligence to get what they want, to make sure they are up high top, dominating, controlling, and manipulating, it takes intelligence. And in order for you to be high up, obviously you're not going to be behaving like a lower caste guy, dreaming and dreaming and dreaming. They're so driven, absolutely driven. They will think that way. I'm chosen by God. We're running the world.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do about
But what's wrong with that? I
There's
mean,
nothing wrong with that, but there is something, there is wrong in here.
what?
Like Prabhu was saying, how you use your intelligence is the thing. Now, they can choose the intelligence and you know what? I am excellent at what I do, and I will make sure my people are protected and cared for and all of that.
Exactly.
Or you can use your intelligence to, you know what? I'm going to lord over it, and be the God and abuse, exploit, and torture. I don't care about anything else. How you feel is I, me, and myself. That is the narcissistic personality.
Yes.
And guess what? Exactly where we are right now. Me, my, and myself, nothing else. And you work for me. You do what I tell you to do. I am the one who is telling you I'm the master and you the servant. That is the attitude right now. And that's where we at right now.
So
Right.
I would say that what we're looking at then is the domination of the Asuras, rather, and that if we made it the world the domination of the Devas, we would still see the Jewish people occupying a lot of the high posts, simply due to their characteristics, like their guna and their karma. Like they're just really good at that stuff.
Do you know the true history of Germany?
The true history of Germany, the one true history of Germany from the beginning of the universe?
Spicy one.
You don't have to go that far back. Back from 1920.
You mean the 1920s, so the Weimar Republic?
Yes, after the Weimar Republic and following it.
The true history. Okay, so I know the mainstream narrative written by the winners of World War II, and I've also read Adolf Hitler's collected speeches from the 20s through to 45 and his books. So I understand it from his perspective and the perspective that was presented to the German people and how the world made sense to them. So I know both of those sides. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, the point I'm getting at is post-World War I Germany, they were in very dire straits. They had extreme poverty after World War I for paying war reparations. They were trying to rebuild the country. And then they also had extreme inflation. So here comes Hitler, and he's a good analyst, and he's trying to understand what's the problem here. Why are things the way they are? And he understands, first of all, the money system is broken. The way the money system is established, we will never prosper. So what did he do? He got rid of the bankers. That means the international bankers, right? Means the Rothschilds, central bank. Okay, and most of the bankers in Germany at that time were also Jews. So he took away from them their banking power. Okay, which made him a lot of enemies, of course. And because he did that, within 3 short years, he was able to turn Germany around from being extremely poverty-stricken to being an economic powerhouse in the envy of the world. And why? Because they had control of their banking system. Now, how many countries in the world right now are not controlled by Rothschild banks, the Jewish banks? 5 or 6, right? Which are the axis of evil, according
Well,
to
hang on a
George
second.
Soros.
You made a leap there that I don't know if it should go unchallenged. You said that they're Rothschild's banks, and then you said that they're Jewish banks. Now the Rothschilds might be
Okay.
Jewish, but it's like if I own something, you can't say that that thing is like like if I'm out doing Harinam, you look at me and you go, he's a white guy, he's doing Harinam. It doesn't make Harinam a white guy thing. It means it's a white guy doing the
Right.
Harinam. Same thing with the Rothschilds.
There's a lot more detail here in understanding how the central banks work and why do countries have central banks, okay? And for all that detail, please read my spiritual economics book. I
But that
explain all that.
doesn't make it a Jewish
Okay,
thing. It might be Jewish people
let me
who are
go on.
operating it.
Let me go on, okay? It's, okay, the international banking system is basically controlled by Jewish people. Okay.
Yeah.
Schiffs, Rothschilds, Harrimans, Rockefellers, these people. Okay. Now, the way they're set up is to suck the money out of a country. The United States does not have the prerogative of printing its own money. The money is printed by or created by the central bank and loaned to the American government at interest. Now, for any reasonable person, that doesn't make any sense. That's the way the central banks of the world work everywhere. Okay? They have the prerogative of creating money, which they loan to the government at interest. And so all money is debt money, which impoverishes people. You cannot become prosperous when you're continually paying usury or debt service. Okay, so Hitler changed that banking system, and he then turned the economic system in Germany around considerably. At the same time, the Jews were also very much involved in moral degradation, homosexuality, promiscuity, etc., etc. And so he also,
like literally all of them without exception.
well, of course, I can't say that. Okay, but
Yeah,
by and large, that it's just like Hollywood. I mean, if you want to make the comparison, right? I mean, the Jews are controlling Hollywood also, and what comes out there.
See, this is a category error, Prabhu. It's like saying that the New Zealand government is made up of white men, and then they're doing all these bad things, so therefore it's white men, and it's like me personally. I'm like, bro, I'm not doing that. Just because those guys look like me doesn't mean that it's me. Why you do that to me?
Okay.
So it's the same thing here.
Let me more carefully choose my words to say some Jewish people.
It's some
Jews.
Jewish people, and then the other thing is that the majority, or even like all of the people who are doing it, all come from that group, which makes it the category error easy to make, to say that it's the Jews.
That's what happens in the world. Some do it, and the rest of them get blamed. Anyway, that's why I was asking if you know the true history of Germany, because Hitler also wanted to remove the moral degradation that was going on in the country. And for that, right, he helped the Jews emigrate to Palestine. He actually paid them and allowed them to take all their money out of Germany to relocate to Palestine. And many did.
It wasn't actually all of their money. It was the Havara Agreement, and they had to pay something like 33% of their money to the government as an immigration tax. But they got to take 66%, which is not like forced location with nothing, right? It's definitely
fair.
Right.
A massive influx of capital to that region, yeah.
Of course, we don't have time to go into extreme detail. I'm generalizing, right? And I don't mean to, it's the general situation, not specifics. Okay.
Okay, I got a Prabhupada quote for you to support your generalization here, because Conte brought this up, right? It's in the Prabhupada Wikipedia page, and it's a criticism of Srila Prabhupada, which they claim says he supports that. Let me pull it up and I'll show it to you. Have you seen this on the Wikipedia page?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna add my screen here and present it. Hang on, share the screen. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Okay, here we go. So down here under controversies, here we go. Views, slavery, lower caste. Here we go. Here's the one for today. Hitler and Jews. So Swami mentioned Hitler to provide an example of materialistic scheming. He also called him a hero. Sometimes he becomes a hero, just like Hiranyakashipu and Kamsa, or in the modern age, Napoleon or Hitler. The activities of such men are certainly very great, but as soon as their bodies are finished, everything else is finished. And this one here, it says he held Jews to be responsible for Holocaust. Now, Conte and I argued about this point because I was like, it doesn't hold them to be responsible for it. It merely presents the history according to Hitler's view, and it's this. Therefore, Hitler killed these Jews. They were financing against Germany. Otherwise, he had no enmity with the Jews, and they were supplying. They want interest money, never mind against our country. Therefore, Hitler decided, kill all the Jews. It's a massive generalization, but it basically...
it's basically the same story. It's the same thing that happened to Gaddafi in Libya. You can't go against the bankers and not be destroyed. They will not tolerate that from a government leader, because if he sets such an example, the world will want to follow and they'll lose control of everything, right? We must understand they control the world. Okay, when Prabhupada wrote, they control the world, that doesn't mean that they control some corporation or something like that. They control the world in every respect. They maintain the status quo. And if they all the intelligence agencies are basically there to maintain the status quo. If somebody gets out of line, they will stop it.
When you say they, who do you mean?
Means the global controllers, okay, the asuras, the demons who control the world, okay? Prabhupada wrote, this world is controlled by demonic personalities. That's who they is.
And there are very few compared to the millions of inhabitants in this material world. There are few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and
but they created means and mechanisms to have great power. They created the corporate structure whereby one person can control the fate of thousands and millions, right? Why does Zelensky get to condemn 500,000 of his countrymen to death by sending them to, a certain death on the front line?
I don't know that.
And it's any country. Why should any leader of any country say, "Oh, we're going to war"? Go ahead, you go get killed, not me. Okay. In other words, the point is they've created this structure of a corporate structure, right? A top-down hierarchical control whereby one person gets to control the actions of many thousands and millions. These types of institutions did not exist in Vedic culture. You won't find it in the history. You won't find it in the history of the Bhagavatam or the Puranas. These institutions are created by the Asuras to enable them to have great control, and they created the money system to exploit and control people without their even knowing it.
It's quite subtle. Yeah, people doesn't even realize that they are living by the day, and even by buying their own food, they're paying taxes.
Yeah.
And
because we're born into it. We're born into it, and we just think that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and when things shouldn't be like that.
I don't know that they did invent this though, because in Bhagavad Gita we find Krishna saying, what whatever actions yad yad acharati shreshtas tad tad eve tero jana, whatever actions a great man performs, a common man follows. So these kind of structures are inherent to the universe, the structure of the universe. They're just
No,
leveraging it in a particular way.
no, you won't find that. You won't find that in Varnashram culture. That type of system does not exist in Varnashram culture. Okay.
What,
Again,
like
a
which system in particular?
hierarchical command control situation where one person controls the actions of many others. The first
Isn't that the
corporation
role
was
of the king?
actually the first corporation was actually the East India Company in
Mhm.
1750, something like that.
Isn't the problem though that isn't this just the crux of the problem? Like Prabhupada said, 5% are demons, 5% are devotees, 90% of the people are just innocent. They go along with whoever's in charge. Isn't it just cut the head off the snake, put the right, get rid of the actual committed Asuric people, and then you put like a Maharaj Yudhisthira person in charge of everything, and then basically the whole ethno structure looks pretty much the same. It's the Jews on top, the Indian people running this, and then but now they're doing it all for self-realization rather
If
than for demonic exploitation.
you won't find such systems. We don't find them in the pages of the Bhagavatam. There are no institutions there that we read about from days of yore. They did not exist, and they are not natural. They're not inherent to a Varnashram social organization.
But there are some kind of hierarchical structures. I mean, there's a king and he has ministers and
There's,
they have like armies with
but it
captains.
doesn't go to the extreme level. Okay, what did you have? The organizational chart for Varnashram is very flat, right? You've got on top, you've got what, one king, right? And
Mhm.
who doesn't have command control really, even of the Vaishyas?
You
There's
have
some
an emperor
let me
above
finish.
that.
There's some Sudras that serve the king, and a lot of different advisors and so on, different people that serve the king. So they've got a a line, right, connecting them. Then you've got vices, and you have Sudras that are working with and helping them, and then Kshatriyas also the same. But the system is not that the king, he makes all the decisions and he says, okay, we're going to do this. He inspires and encourages people. The way I present it is like a king's like for our analogy, a temple president. What do you want in a temple? You want to have a good kirtan leader. You want to have a great cook. You want to have nice deity worship. So you want to have all these people. So you create an environment where those people can come and do their task and flourish and be happy, and you support them. And then at the same time, of course, you have to create roads, you have to create education, structure, entertainment, commerce, and so on like that. But there's no institution like United States of America. We don't hear of the great Bharat as an institution. It didn't exist like that. Power was placed in a person of ability, not in a position. In an institution, power is placed in a seat or a position. You get a title. And it doesn't matter what your qualification is, you have the power of that seat. That didn't exist in Vedic culture. President.
Really?
No. Power is given to people commensurate with their ability. This is why Yudhisthira, he was the emperor of the entire world. Why? Because he was the most qualified.
Well, no, because they managed, yeah, but that was manifested through them actually conquering everyone. They did the Rajasuya sacrifice to, send out the challenge horse.
Well, in many cases, they didn't have to fight. In many cases, the other emperors, it would recognize, yes, this is a qualified man, we'll pay our tax.
Mm-hmm. But how does that differ from what we have today, where it's like countries will, swear loyalty to the United States or face invasion?
In one sense, not too different, but in another sense, is how do we? What is the method of the United States hegemony today? It's not the same as the Maharaj Yudhisthira. The United States hegemony is based on money. Basically, money is a tool to manipulate and control countries and to exploit them. And then we have a big army, a huge military to back that up if people didn't cooperate. So there's one general, Smedley Butler. I don't know if you've seen his quote, but he said basically, I was a muscle man for the United States, and for what? For the Dole pineapple to become established in South America,
Central America.
or the banana company to be established in Central America, and so on like that. And he was the muscle guy that went in to make sure that they would cooperate. It was economic exploitation. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, he wasn't very happy about that in the end.
Right, exactly. Because after a while, he realized what he was doing. Sure.
Here's a question for you from the audience. This is the guy, RSJCMP, who said before the show started, I'm not going to be watching or hearing it, but he has ended up watching it and hearing it. And he has a question. He says, what country would you rather live in as a Hare Krishna, Israel or Iran?
I don't have experience with either one of those countries, so I can't answer that question. I don't know. I've met devotees from Iran and Israel, and both of them, let's say the Iranian devotees, they were not very happy with their government. I'm not real happy with my government. And I'm sure that there's many devotees I read recently of devotees who have been drafted into the Israeli army. Of course, everybody has to go into military service, and there's many devotees who are in active duty right now who are in an unfortunate situation. So I'd rather not be in either one of those countries to the degree that I know them. Again, the world is run by demons. So where's the shelter? Harinam.
Anywhere where the bodies are and Krishna is there. It's quite, in a way, for how Israel put themselves in, where their people are trained, women and men, they're trained. It's awesome. But when it comes to situations where you are Hare Krishna and you don't want to kill any innocent person, and the Asuras are in charge, we are in a very awkward situation because you have no choice to withdraw unless you have some mental illness or you're proven to be physically unable to do it. That means, the body has to chop their legs, unable to do it, but still they have to do something as a service to their country. That's a very tough situation.
It's true in every country. It was true when the movement was started here in America. Many devotees, they tried to be, prove that they were crazy so that they could stay in the Hare Krishna movement instead of going to the military. It's true in Ukraine right now. I know many devotees young men who they're no longer with us. They're on both sides, Russia or Ukraine. And it's the same thing in every war, right? The young men are taken and put to a service they'd rather not do.
Yeah. And that is the unfortunate thing right now, Len. It's not living in Israel or living in Iran. It is just that our governments, because they are run by elites and corrupted by elites, some few of them, and manipulated by some small amount of elites, they put the citizens in such a horrible situation because they are the ones now they have to go to the front and fight. For what is the purpose? What is the big reason for that? It is basically for the little few people that just want to dominate. Like, people still don't see war doesn't have any benefit to themselves. You know, it is more to these few people that just want to lord over it, and then who is fighting for it innocently, the ones that are actually under the dictum of these people.
Well, I suggest that all the militaries, that they turn around and just go to war against their own government, and then that problem would be solved. Of course, now it'd just be replaced with some other demon. But
Yeah, that's a problem.
And
Yeah.
that is the thing, you know, now as a devotees, we have to be more adept in politics, adept in economics, adept in health, because we can understand from not only the Srimad Bhagavatam, that is exactly we are in the war, in the middle of war of the asuras and the demigods, the Kali Yuga. And we need now leaders, we need the Satriya devotees to be out there and protecting the innocent.
in this age, the Lord comes with his weapons, and his weapons are his associates and the Maha Mantra. That
Yeah.
mantra is perfectly capable of acting in any of the Lord's capacity, and it can certainly turn the demons into happy people who give up their demonic mentality.
For sure. Yeah.
So that's our job, right? Our war, to go out there with the holy name to convince people, everyone you meet, please chant this Maha Mantra, because that is what can save and change this world. Nothing else. This is why I joined Prabhupada's mission. When I first was reading his books, I read, Prabhupada said, if you want to change the world, you have to change consciousness. And immediately understood, yes, that's it. It doesn't make, going to Vietnam War isn't going to change anything. It doesn't change consciousness. We have to change it, raise the consciousness up. That's our task that nobody else can do. And,
Correct.
you're good soldiers in that regard, carrying on with the Harinam, despite all the adversity from wherever. When are we going to get to see River of Freedom out here in America?
That's a great question. I mean, it's still playing here in New Zealand in the theaters, and they're working on the international cut. So once the international cut is available, then I don't know how they're going to release it, whether it will be released online or whether it will run in theaters. Yeah. To TBA, to be advised. Yeah, it's interesting. I think my takeaway from this is that, because I often wonder about this as well, when you do the so-called conspiracy analysis of history, which includes Srila Prabhupada's analysis, like straight off Wikipedia, it's like he's a card-carrying conspiracy theorist, It's like no two ways about it. If you follow the Acharya, if you say you follow the Acharya and you are not condemned by society as a racist, homophobic, sexist conspiracy theorist, you're doing it wrong. You're not actually doing it. He's on Wikipedia getting condemned for that, and what? You're going to walk away from him? No, why are you not on Wikipedia being condemned for that?
Because why? Because conspiracy theory is synonymous with the word truth. Right?
Yeah.
And people who don't want the truth to get out, that's what they call it.
Yeah, conspiracy, exactly, for suppressing the truth. My takeaway from this is that, like just that high-powered rifle versus the pellet gun analogy again, that in any circumstance, any institution, any movement, anything that's going on, whether it's run by the Asuras or the Devas, you're going to find Jewish people playing a prominent and powerful role in that. So you should expect to see that the leading generals on both sides, the leading Maharatis, are going to come from particular communities, So it's no surprise to me that I should find, the names of people involved in the banking system or in Hollywood or in the government or in the Weimar Republic, and there are going to be Jewish people there, prominently represented. And I would expect to see those same prominent representation in the future history of the world, how the Sankirtan movement took over, that names of prominent Maharatis in that movement will come from the Jewish community as well.
Okay, well, the question comes, not taking anything away from them, but the question is, how should the world be run? Okay, how should Hollywood, how should that very powerful medium be used to control people, to manipulate people, or to enlighten people, to lift people
Well, I
up?
mean,
Okay,
look,
or how should
enlightenment and manipulation are two different castings of the same thing. You call it enlightenment, right? But it's just another form of manipulation.
no, well, not necessarily. How? Not everybody. We can't force people to become self-realized. They take
No,
it
we
at their
can't
own
force
pace,
people.
but we
Yeah,
can
we can't force
help
people to
them.
be
We
indoctrinated
can
either.
lead them in that direction, right? In other words, are you doing good or are you doing evil? Are you serving good or are you serving evil? That's a
Yeah,
question.
so that's what I'm saying is
Divine
it's
or
like
demoniac?
when they charged Prabhupada with brainwashing, they said you're brainwashing people, and he just said, "What's wrong with brainwashing them?" It's like, yes, we are going to manipulate them, and we are going to indoctrinate them, and we are going to use force to make people do the right thing and not do the wrong thing. And the only difference between us and the Asuras is that we differ on the definition of what the right and the wrong thing is, and we get
Well,
ours from the Vedic scriptures.
we don't use force either.
Yes, we do.
When you are in
What is
Harinam,
this?
you don't draft people and you say, "Chant Hare Krishna."
No, when we're out there and people say stop chanting, I'm like, no, we're not going to stop chanting.
Right,
We do use
right,
force. We do not
but,
step away from that.
right. But
We're not cowards.
you don't make people chant. You can't do that. You can't make people become self-realized. You can help them. You can encourage them, right? You can give them what they need, but they have to do it. Everybody
Yeah,
has
but
free will.
if you have a look at how the democracy is run, nobody's forcing anyone to do any of this stuff. They're using brainwashing to get them to do it, and we're going to just brainwash them into being devotees.
Okay. What's wrong with brainwashing?
What's wrong with brainwashing? You don't want your brain to be washed.
In the proper
You don't
sense of
want
the
your
word.
brain to be washed? Prabhupada, it is a bad thing. I mean, we're going to have to use force, like you have to, otherwise, if we don't have people who use force, people who do use force will come in and use that, it's,
I guess the word force has a lot of negative connotations. Like force is just like, you know what I mean? I guess it would be becoming more confident of what our mission is, and through our love, what we give to them, and who we are as a person ourselves, that is a powerful force or a powerful example for them to say, I really like that.
Our force is
Rather
to
than
give.
just
Our force is giving a wonderful example that people say, "I want what those people have."
exactly. Yeah, it's basically like Srila Prabhupada. He was an example for the world to follow. For a 69-year-old gentleman coming from India and changing the whole course of our lives, that is beneficial for the society, beneficial for oneself, it is a powerful force. You cannot turn around, it's like, nah, whatever. It's like, what? A gentleman of that age, you know what? A gentleman my age, that age already are with some sort of like a psychotic issues, depression, they are going through dementia, Alzheimer's, or they just like visiting prostitutes here and there. They have no life. There is no future in their life. There are so many people at that age going through that. It's like, what I have to lose now? I will do whatever I want to enjoy. That's what their mentality. But Srila Prabhupada came to this world. It's like, no, you can live happily. You can die even happily.
What Prabhupada did was give everybody the truth. And it was so fresh and so foreign and so wonderful that they eagerly accepted it. And that still works. Not for everybody. For those who can hear it and who are attracted by it. Not everybody will do that.
He was
The
a
same
great
thing with
example.
Harinam.
Yeah.
We go in Harinam, I mean, some people, they stop and they listen. They say, what is that? I want that. That's wonderful. That's nice.
it's
It's a
kind of
powerful
like,
force.
it's reflecting back on the first century Palestine Peace. You know the that the Jewish those Jewish people there in first century Palestine as Vaishnavas, so powerful, history changing, that even the abasa of their practice in their community, you know, like the shadow of it, creates Christianity.
Read my book a little more carefully. Did you read that part of the book yet?
I did, yeah. I've read it.
Well, it was the Romans that created Christianity. Maybe I didn't get that.
But they created it out of, like, them
Sure,
creating that.
Yeah, they used Jesus to create a religion that was subservient to the state.
Mhm.
And that's what they want all the time. They want a religion subservient to the state. That same thing is going on with ISKCON right now.
100%. I wrote that this morning to one of the leaders in ISKCON. He wrote to me and I wrote him back and I said, you know, the leaders here in New Zealand demonstrated that they are very good at being craven servants of the government.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But there's nowhere that we find in the Bhagavatam that the response to the Asura is to philosophically deviate in order to appease them. That's just not a program. Prahlad Maharaj never did that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And going back to the Romans, weren't they the first ones to invent all of this monetary system? They use religion to control people, another religion so they can control them. We're in the war between England and Irish and all of this takeover. They were using religion to conquer people. They use religion. These Asuras are so clever. They use religion to dominate, religion to make people like squared and say, yes, for God, we're doing it for God, you know?
Because people naturally want to worship God, they become bewildered by what is this religion, right? You've heard the saying, you know, well, if that's religion, I'll take the devil. Because, you know, so many terrible things are done in using religion to motivate people, you know. Yes, God is on our side. You know, we're in God's army. But, you know, and unfortunately, maybe because it's Kali Yuga, people get they get bewildered and they don't get what they're after. What's the real religion? The eternal religion.
I think in Kali Yuga, what I see in these spiritual societies or groups is they're very passive.
There's
And
what?
Passive, very passive. Another thing in this ISKCON world is basically the total manipulation and domination of people. They become so passive and they accept things as they are told. They don't have this sense of discrimination. Hey, I don't think so. You know, that they don't, and because they have been manipulated in a sense of like, if you rebel, if you say the truth, you know, well, not exactly like that, but if you rebel, God will punish you. You will go to the hellish planets. You cannot speak to this Maharaj or these leaders in this way. You will be, you know, your karma and all of that. So it is a total manipulation. It's a total brainwash to the people. They cannot stand up to this, like, a great amount of like fake gurus raping children, that they cannot say, you know what, this is not the way. There's no such as at all. They can put these people in their own place because they're bloody manipulated to the core. Women, what to speak for women? They're so manipulated, and they speak about, oh, this person is in Maya. You know, you are in Maya. That's why you're thinking the way you're thinking. You cannot say such a thing. You are in Maya. It's like, no. There is a right moral things that Krishna himself is the morality in human beings. I think it says in Bhagavad Gita 1, chapter 1, you know, between discriminating what is right and what is wrong. Well, why Krishna created right and wrong? Just to be totally manipulated? No, to discern this is what is right and this is what is wrong. And we're not going with that. There is no such a thing of people now. They're so asleep.
Yeah, because there's demons that want to control and manipulate them, and they confuse them with a lot of propaganda. So anyway, I just wanted to say a little caveat here at the end. I don't want to come across as anti-Semitic. All Jews are not bad. Some Jews are bad. All white men are not bad. Some white men are bad. All women are not bad. Some women are bad. Right? There's divine and demonic in every category. Okay. And the point was that in first century Palestine, there was the Vaishnavas were there, and they were destroyed by the ruling powers of the day to create a religion that would be subservient to the state, and that's what we have to discern in our modern time. Religion is not meant to be subservient to the service of the state. Rather, it should be the other way around.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah, the Jewish Vaishnavas were there in the first century, and they're back
That's right.
because they're immortal. We're back.
Yeah. And I, send a lot of love and may Krishna protect to all of these Vaishnavas in Israel.
Are there Vaishnavas in Palestine?
Well, no, sorry, I haven't completed my sentence. Vaishnavas in Israel, Vaishnavas in Palestine, Vaishnavas in every part of the world. They are Vaishnavas protected by Krishna. And for some reason, they have taken birth in this part of the world to do some service, to bring out now the golden age, and sending my love, my prayers to them. Krishna is with them, anywhere they are, Krishna is with them, no matter what. Krishna is always there, and victory is at their side as well. So if they believe and if they strongly are attached to Krishna, then victory is for them and for all of the Vaishnavas.
Mm-hmm. Prabhu frozen? Looks like
No.
Okay.
You're so attentive.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show, Prabhu, again, and thank you for being an unapologetic conspiracy theorist. I love it.
No, conspiracy realists. There are conspiracies, they are real, and they are true.
Yeah. Facts.
Yeah, truth. Truth is called conspiracy theory by the persons who want to keep people bewildered and in ignorance. So, yeah, we should all be conspiracy realists. Anyway, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for continuing the Harinam and the Kshatriya mood of conquering the world.
For Guru and Krishna.
Good.
For Krishna, for Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, nice to see you again.
Let's give this last word to Chris Briscoe. He says here, also in Dhanesvara's book, here's someone who has definitely read the first part of the book. It is interesting that the Romans, when talking about the very early Christians, said that they would die for their beliefs rather than submit to anything the Romans wanted to impose. I remember that as it was very interesting, showing just how determined they were.
Yeah. Why would you submit to the Asuras? You have no win-win situation if you submit to the Asuras. It's like, come on. Krishna is telling you, I am with you. Victory is with you. Just surrender to me. Oh, wait. You know what? I'm going to go to the Romans. It's like, how can you do that? Where is your core belief of God himself is telling you, you are with me? That means you are victory. I mean victory, my son, my daughter. Oh, Asuras, you're my God now. It's like, and I really, really appreciate these early, these devotees of Vaishnavas in the early Palestinian time, or 20th century? First century. I really appreciate that. But you know what? To be courageous, to be decisive in your beliefs and anchoring yourself to God in the midst of this takeover of these asuras is not easy. It's not absolutely easy.
Donna, have you read the book yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Part of it, yes.
From page 1. Don't skip ahead.
Okay.
To the end.
Okay, we'll go back and we'll read it from page 1. Divine or Demoniac, Spiritual Movements and the Enemies Within by Dhanesvara Das. It's available on Amazon.com or from any good conspiracy realist back of his the trunk of his car near you. That's actually a better shot there because the cover's a bit glossy, yeah. Dedicated to Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Yeah, Nectar. Thank you so much for coming on, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you. All glory to
service.
Srila Prabhupada. Harinam
Srila
Sankirtan
Prabhupada.
Ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay. There you go. Inspiration from the Vaishnavas of first century Judea, Israel, Palestine, that geographic region, Kingdom of Judea, Kingdom of Israel.
If you watch even the movie of Jesus, when it's Christmas time, I used to watch a lot about the Jesus. That was our like main thing. It was like so much joy because we're gonna see about Jesus and the crucifixion and all of that. And my take on was like they were so staunch, the bodies. Even like Judah Ben Hur is called. It's in Espanol. It's Judá de Ben Hur or something like that.
What is it?
This is just Judea or Judaist guy who fights and then he for some reason because he was fighting against the Romans and he was kind of like believing God fearing person. And he was fighting against the injustice that the Romans were putting. And he went to sent for, what is that? The prisoners go sent to the to do the ship.
Yeah, like a slave.
Yeah, he was like a slave. And somehow the Romans and so with someone else were having a fight, and the boat where this king was got blown, and he was chained to the wood because he was a prisoner. And somehow by destiny, I guess, he got out. He survived, and he saw that the king was, or the Roman emperor was somewhere, and he went rescue him, put it in a very safe place. And somehow after the war, it was recognized that the war was won by the Romans. And this Roman guy took him, this Judean person, as his son. He recognized him as the son. But he basically gave up that and says, no, I am God and I am with my people.
It's another movie?
It's in a movie, Judá Ben Hur.
Let me see if I can find it. How do you spell it?
Judá, Judá, D-A.
U-J?
Yeah.
J-U-D-A?
Yeah, Judá Ben Hur. Ben, B-E-N.
Oh, Ben Hur.
Yeah, Ben Hur. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Ben Hur.
Ben Hur. Anyways, and how the Christians, not the Christians, but the Judaizers were so loyal. So
Okay,
staunch
I've actually
devotees.
never seen that movie.
Oh, it's beautiful.
This one here, Charlton Heston. This one
Charles
here?
Heston. Yeah.
Okay.
It's so beautiful. It makes me cry every time that I watch it. But yeah, we have to be loyal to our religion. No, spiritual. I know. Loyal to our spiritual practices, loyal to God, loyal to do the right thing.
We are just inhabiting two different realms, like I understand the perspective of the ISKCON leaders and the world and the way that they're viewing the world, but I don't get that they understand the way that I see the world, because when they say things to me, I'm like, I understand what you're saying, but that's not what I think.
Neither they will understand your thinking. You know, they were in a different world, definitely.
Yeah.
Because for them, what occurs or what I see for them is like, okay, we have to compromise because we don't want to be under the
Persecuted by the
watch and
government.
persecutors. Like,
Yeah.
you just compromise yourself. It's all about time before things come, and you have to be actually obeying and bowing down
Yeah.
to them
At what
every time.
point do you say no? You just say no at the very beginning, like immediately. You don't go like, oh,
Yeah.
if we appease them, then they won't do anything to us. And then it's like either one of us is on the path to taking over the planet. But I think they've abandoned that entire frame is the actual issue. They've abandoned that as a frame. The frame that they're living in is that, like you just have to be, that these governments are not demonic. They're just, reality is complicated and
They're about basically they're not reading the Gita. What is the actually in Kali Yuga, what is the future? And for some reason they are thinking things are gonna get better, and the governments are basically gonna be exclusively amazing, favorable.
Mhm.
And the reality when we observing is they are not favorable. Sooner or later they will shun the practice of religion. Now, guess what? Now the family unit is basically getting destroyed. And by who? What is for the members that are very fragile? The children. They're attacking our children now with all of this like changing or mutilating yourself to change for something that your mind is saying you're not.
And the government is promoting
And
that.
the government is promoting. And now this Hare Krishna, oh no, it's okay, it's okay. It's like, oh, it's karma. It's like, no, it's not karma. It's like, oh, part of it is karma, but part of it is like, use your intelligence. We are in Kali Yuga right now. We are in the middle of war, where people just like they start bombarding you with so many things, especially this government, so few of these elites already creating the havoc in the world. They're already telling us what's going to be next. They're already telling like what different mediums, there's another pandemic coming. They're giving the light.
Mm-hmm.
Something is coming. And what's going to happen now? Will you be submitting yourself to them? No. Or you go and reread again what Srila Prabhupada said. We are in Kali Yuga, self-sufficiency. Go, you practice your chanting, you practice your spiritual life strongly. As otherwise, you're gonna be just easily taken up by Maya. It's easy, Maya is so powerful. We cannot play with that. We cannot being pathetic and thinking our little brain like, no, I'm stronger than Maya. And even by thinking that way, we're already the Maya. You see, it's so powerful. It's so corrosive.
Okay. On that topic, let's go to the garden.
Yeah.
At the farm. Do some gardening this afternoon. Thanks for tuning in, everyone who made it this far, all the way through the episode. Thanks again to our guest, Dhanesvara Prabhu. Just with every guest, I may not agree with everything, but the conversation itself is valuable. And, people will have their opinions and their criticism and their take on the whole thing, as with every guest.
Yeah, I guess the thing is not about criticizing or thinking like the criticizing or whatever. The thing is like, okay, how is this person thinking and what is the background, the study that person is doing? It's like, okay, if we analyze the way he's thinking and apply it to the real world, how what's happening is like, okay, that makes really sense, And as I think you keep saying, history is written by what? Who?
The victors, yeah.
Exactly. And who are the victors here?
They're not necessarily always the good guys. And
Exactly.
Srila Prabhupada's historical revisionism is like, a lot of people want to do away with that,
Yeah.
And I noticed that, actually everywhere in ISKCON, it's like, oh, why you want to talk about the moon landing? It's not the main thing. Well, why did Prabhupada go on about it so much? Why was he always banging on about like, hey, it's fake. They have not gone, It's like, oh, well, that was, and then they have to invent these other theories like, oh, it was due to his, cultural conditioning or this, that, psychological theories. But what I discover about Srila Prabhupada is if you take any of these countercultural, counterintuitive, controversial positions and you just take it as it is and then expand it from there, you find a weak point of Western civilization and an important penetrating analysis that it smashes through the indoctrination. The only reason you think it's controversial is because you've been indoctrinated
Yeah, that's
to
the
not
thing.
look at that
Yeah.
and to not allow yourself or others to look at it.
And that is the problem these days, that is the thinking, because before at school we are indoctrinated. I can see how much indoctrination I've gone through. And then now that we're looking at history and then looking actually what is the real history? I'm living in that situation, you see, in that situation where myself, I have been kicked out of work because I said, no, I'm not putting anything in my body unless I consent. And then they are coercing me to do that, as otherwise I won't get the job. This is coercion. I'm living through that. And then guess what the history they're writing? They're writing the history that they're good guys. They are doing in the benefit of people. And guess what? People are dying like flies now.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna write their history as being the good guys. And guess what about us that we said, like, no, you're not the good guy. And I can see myself. And if we look back in the history from what happened before, it's like this is not about the good guys win all the time.
Here we go. Hang on, I'm just going to put this up just because you said they're dying like flies, right? 2 days ago. 1 day ago. Rachel Chase, influencer mum whose fitness tips inspired 1.4 million people, suddenly dies, leaving behind 5 children. Death being investigated by the coroner. Oh, something. I wonder what could it possibly be. A New Zealand influencer and mother of 5, famous for her inspirational fitness posts, has died. Her cause of death is not known at this stage. I mean, it happens all the time, right? Yeah. Anyway, that is the world that we're living in right now, where people die suddenly. It's on the news, and it's like,
hey, you know what they tell us? Eat well, exercise well, you will be healthier.
Yeah.
Guess what? A healthier person just died out of the blue. Oh, wait, what could that be? I wonder if it's the air. I know, actually, probably it's the climate change. The sun killed her. Right. So we just need to be a little bit more
discerning,
discerning,
turn your
very
brain on.
cautious. Yeah. Because the brainwash is happening. Every second on TV, especially.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay, thanks for tuning in.
Stop the rant.
Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Total world victory of Hare Krishna.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.